Other things from my personal background, I have a industrial engineering and management degree from Oulu, but usually my most talent comes from the fact that I'm a self-taught software developer or a hacker. And I live in Gibraltar. I have been here 3 years. I have left Finland for good. And on this presentation, we are going to do a lot of stuff. It's very packed. It probably would be word of one of the university courses itself. So for any questions, let's please leave it at the end of the presentation, and I'm going to publish the slides later, so you can come back and comment if you have something to say. And basically, there are three kind of views we can take on cryptocurrencies. We can look technological side, like how a blockchain is built, what kind of software it runs, how fast it is. Then we can look at the social impacts, like how it has enabled new business models, how people are raising money and why people are investing in tokens. And then we also see the macroeconomic view, like how cryptocurrencies are changing the world, how banks and institutions are now taking Bitcoin more seriously, and how it has become a mainstream. So first we start with the tech side of things. And we go back like early days of internet. So around 70s, both internet and what we call public key cryptography were invented. And the same principle that you are using with Bitcoin and other blockchains, public and private keys, you are also using with your credit cards if you have a chip in them, because that chip is basically containing a small CPU and your private key. And you are also using it every day when you are browsing internet over a secure communication. Then the other important element what enabled the creation of the blockchain was open source movement, and especially one that led to a creation of Linux kernel and all of that Cambrian explosion of open source software in 90s and early 2000s. Then we get a little bit closer of the blockchain itself, and as you all might know, the Bitcoin was first blockchain. But before Bitcoin, there were a few attempts to create a digital cash. There was one called DigiCash. It was already as early as 80, and it was based on the ideas that you actually have a kind of NFT tokens as a file that you are giving people like coins. So each coin was its own file, and it was not a very scalable model. Then we invented proof of work first as a way to combat spam email. It evolved to a hashcash, and at the same time, around early 2000s, we invented peer-to-peer networking, which is most famous for file sharing services like BitTorrent. And basically, what Bitcoin did, that it combines the peer-to-peer and proof of work, and its own inventation was called a distributed ledger. That actually your peer-to-peer network, instead of containing files, it can contain the state of different accounts and balances over the time. And Bitcoin was the first blockchain or first cryptocurrency, and started 2008. Then it evolved to what we call a proof of stake. So proof of work is mining and it's the energy consumption, but we already had a solution for that like early as 2012. So it's not a new thing, and all of those clickbaits that say that how much energy Bitcoin is consuming, how much energy Bitcoin is consuming compared to other countries are like just clickbaits, and that's not going to how it's going to evolve in the future. The first proof of stake coin was a peer coin, and then we got a little bit more elegant version of proof of stake called delegated proof of stake, that you don't need to run your own node software to be a part of the proof of stake. And the first blockchain that was using delegated proof of stake was BitShares. And then we move forward from the Bitcoin. So we first moved to Ethereum. That was the first blockchain that had the smart contracts. So in a Bitcoin, you can't really do any smart stuff on the blockchain. You can just transfer value. And Ethereum was actually the first one where you can do a smarter transaction. You can do sales, you can do lending pools, and you can do stuff like that. And that evolved like the first, let's say, better version of Ethereum model was EOS virtual machine in 2018. And the major difference is that the EOS is much more powerful. And instead of using specialized tools like a Solidity programming language, you can use normal C++ and you can use normal C++ compiler to create your smart contracts. And currently, Ethereum itself, Ethereum virtual machine, if not the Ethereum blockchain itself, is dominating the field. So Ethereum mainnet can do 7 transactions per second. That's around the rate, or let's say 7 to 15. It's not very fast. Ethereum virtual machine derivatives like Polygon, Avance, and Binance Smart Chain, they can scale all the way up to the 8,000 transactions per second. But that's like the upper limit. So with this kind of model, how it has been constructed, you can't go any faster. And it's kind of a dead end for evolution, because you can't make Ethereum faster no matter how fast you try, because in the end you are going to hit limitations like speed of light and so on that can't be overcome with the current model. And the next steps here, what we are going to see is the how to make this faster. So there's a few ways to do it. First, we can just create a blockchain that's more specialized. So we are going to get more transactions out from a single computer by making the computer and software faster. Or we can get the horizontal scaling by splitting the blockchain to independent parts, and within the parts are called shards, and within the same shard you can do your normal blockchain, your tokens to from one shard to other. It's going to be a cross-shard transaction and it's specially handled. And then we also have one branch of research that's focusing on privacy and a concept called multi-party computing. And you are basically using special Intel hardware with the promise from Intel that you can't tap it, you can't see what's going inside the CPU and the memory chips when you are running the software on an Intel CPU. And based on that promise, you can basically do private transactions that nobody can see except the CPU itself, and you can't basically create the wires that are small enough that you could listen what's happening inside CPU. All right, and that was all about tech. So I think the main point is that we are here in the phase where we are starting to scale Ethereum. So we have seen what Ethereum and Bitcoin can do, and now we are looking how to make this bigger. And what happened with the social impact of cryptocurrencies in the recent past is that, of course, Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency. People didn't really know about in the mainstream until 2013, but already early as 2011, there was a first Bitcoin clone called Litecoin. And it basically just took the Bitcoin source code, changed the name and changed some parameters and launched their own blockchain. And then the people figured out 2014 that, yeah, you can do your own Litecoin. So it led to creation of Dogecoin, which is basically the same as Litecoin, but you again just change the name and change some parameters. There were personal branded coins like Max Coin. So you have just take a celebrity and they launch their own blockchain and say that this is the future. And there were some blockchains that just say that, hey, we are the blockchains for artists, we are blockchains for whatever vertical industries you have there. And there were tons of them. And of course, none of them were very successful. They don't, if you just take the Bitcoin code and change some parameters, you are not really creating value. So it's just like creating clones, and in the end, you have not created nothing. And this was the history of altcoins, and the term of the altcoin comes from here, because whatever is not Bitcoin, it's an alternative for Bitcoin. And then we go to the launch of Ethereum around 2015 and the smart contracts, and what the Ethereum promised that instead of creating a blockchain for yourself, you can create a token that runs on the top of Ethereum. And these tokens could be controlled by smart contracts, so they could do something clever. And the token standard was called ERC20, and it was launched between 2015 to 2017. How the early days look like. So the first Ethereum token was called Augur. They are still around. It's basically a prediction market, launched early 2016. Then we had our first decentralized exchange called EtherDelta, summer 2016. And then at the end of the summer 2016, we had the massive ICO called the DAO. That was basically a kind of a venture fund on a blockchain. But it was too early. The guys were too greedy, and there was nothing like a concept of smart contract security or audit back in the day. And of course, what happened that they raised tons of money in Ether, and the smart contracts didn't work, so it got hacked. And 2016, this split the Ethereum community. So people were discussing should we undo this mistake, because the hacker had so much Ether for himself that whenever Ethereum moves to proof of stake in the future, they could basically control the chain. So the argument was made. So somebody called, we need to fix this, we undo this, the DAO mistake. By the way, the DAO guys were not affiliated with Ethereum at all. They were just like independent developers. So the community was like, are we going to clean up the mess by the others, or are we going to leave the mess as it is? And this led to a split of Ethereum, as we know. And then there was another fork called Ethereum Classic. And today, basically, Ethereum Classic is dead, so we have only the Ethereum left. And after the Ethereum community recovered from the DAO hack, we already saw at the end of the 2016 that the ICOs are actually kind of working. And 2017, 2018, people were reading these stories that there's an ICO, they have raised tons of money just by having a funny paper, and everybody wanted to copy that model because everybody wanted to get rich fast. And there was a massive cryptocurrency bubble towards the end of the year 2017. First, Bitcoin went up like crazy, and after that, Ethereum went up like crazy. And it was all mostly caused by this ICO boom, and people were pumping money in. And it kind of worked. So there are arguments why it works very well. that you can have a way to raise money from the global audience. You can have your token trade on the day one. What doesn't happen on the angel investing, where you are buying company shares, they are illiquid for a very long time or forever in most cases. And you could give a fair deal, so you could have an ICO that gives a flat price for all investors, no matter if you are a professional or a small ticket investor. So you get all on the same terms. But there was also a downside. So most of these ICOs failed. People were greedy and they didn't really make sense. So there are many reasons to fail. Some just failed for the normal startup reasons. They couldn't get the stuff built. But some of the ICOs were outright like a fraud. They were scams. So you gave money to people and they disappear on the following week with all the money. So basically, investors didn't do their due diligence and they made a lot of losses on these ones. And I think the most famous one known in Finland is called OneCoin, 2014. I don't know how many billions of dollars or euros money they raised, but it's still, the money is still gone and nobody knows where is it or where the OneCoin people are. So what happened next is called the crypto winter. After 2018, with everything, the bubble burst, we saw the ICOs were like not working that well in the end. And 2018 and the summer to 2020, basically nothing happened. So all the crypto projects were just like hibernating and building slowly, and there was not much going on. But then things started to get interesting again. So at the second half of 2019, the Ethereum ecosystem had got much better. So when we started 2017, the tools were very primitive. We didn't have really good user interfaces. We didn't have, we didn't understand how the tokens work and so on. So in 2019, we started to get the grasp of the things, and we started to create like real digital autonomous organizations where the whole organization is governed by a smart contract. And this is a major difference. When you did an ICO in 2017, you basically collect the money somewhere, you move it to a cryptocurrency exchange account or bank account, and then whatever is the CEO of the company is controlling the money. But now if you have a real DAO, it means that the DAO holders are controlling the money and they have a direct power over it. So it means that if there are no hacks and there are no fraud, and it works as said, basically you can remove all the founders, and the governance token holders would still able to vote how to use the money and establish a new team to continue the development. And also the money doesn't go to a company. So if there's like something like Aave lending pool, the money stays on the protocol and goes to a protocol treasury that's again controlled by a DAO, and it doesn't go to a single point of failure at any point. And the other thing that changed, that instead of trying to create utility tokens that have a kind of pseudo or fake utility, Ethereum developers said we are fed up with this crap. We actually just create tokens that have real value, and if you hold the token, you are earning interest either as a way of dividends or interest on a lending pool. And this comes really close to being a security and should be regulated in the most part of the world. But developers were like, yeah, it could be a security, but it's very decentralized. So you can't stop it after it's out. There's no way to stop it. So you can go and start hunt all the individual people who are holding the tokens, but that's basically the only way it could be stopped in the practice. or making it illegal that nobody is allowed to touch the stuff, but that would also limit the freedoms of people a lot. And on the right side, I have an image how the Aave governance works. So it's basically a forum where you can post proposals and then the token holders are going to vote on them. The participation rate is really high because it's a direct democracy. So you usually see something like 4% of the token holders to turn up and vote. And then this decentralized finance evolved. So we have basically a few important projects. So first one was the MakerDAO that created a first synthetic US dollar stablecoin. And MakerDAO works in a way that you put in ETH or any token as a collateral, and you get the similar amount of the DAI token that holds the value in the US dollar. And it's basically a loan for yourself. And if the value of your collateral or the value of ETH goes down too fast, so basically your collateral doesn't cover the full loan, you get liquidated and your ETH is sold to make end meets. And then this evolved to synthetics, the same as a MakerDAO for US dollar, but for synthetics you can create any asset. So you can create a Tesla stock, you can create other world currencies, and you just put in a collateral and you get the synthetic asset. Then the decentralized exchange evolved as well. So nowadays, the most popular one is called Uniswap. That's not based on an order book, but the bonding curves. And it's a concept that you just are a liquidity provider. So you deposit both pairs, both sides of the trading pair. And then the Uniswap will give a same price for all the buyers and sellers and all the liquidity providers. So it kind of says that this is how the price will move, and this is how we are going to set the profit. We have other stable coins besides MakerDAO. We have bank deposit packet stable coins like Tether. And then we also have a lending pools like Aave being the most famous project in that space. So this is what it looked around 2018. And where it's going today. So we got a first, let's call it the profit sharing token project called SushiWap, where you just hold that there's no real, it's a real profit sharing token, not utility token. So you just get Sushi token and you get the part of the SushiWap profits. We have a yen finance that's a kind of automated investor robo service. You put in money and yen will invest it for you and you get the interest for that. You get a Curve, that's a very big player. It's a stable coin marketplace. So instead of Uniswap that you swap some tokens to other tokens, on Curve you only do stable coins. So you can swap from one US dollar token to other US dollar token. And the exchange rate will be always very good. So it allows you to move your funds between different providers. And then we have the governance layer. Aragon was the first one. It never got popular, but nowadays we have something called Snapshot that you can add a governance on any token. So Snapshot just takes a balance snapshot in a certain blocks and then lets the token holders vote. And all of these popular projects have created tons of clones. So basically, you get a lot of people all over the world. They just take the source code, they'll change the name and launch their own service with different branding, and that's pretty much all they do. And then they also take these services that all started on Ethereum, they put them on other blockchains like Binance Smart Chain being the most popular one. And a lot of these teams that do clones, they are very low quality. So they have no idea what they are doing and they all usually get hacked sooner or later. And it's very, very risky. It's as to invest. Either the team doesn't know what they are doing or they are like just outright scams. A bit like what happened in 2017. And the story of Bitcoin as transfer of value is pretty much done. So people really care about dollars. They don't care about Bitcoin. Nobody's using Bitcoin for payments. And I spoke with people who have a trading desk in Jyväskylä, and they told that they're all 90% of their volume is now in USDT Tether, and people just buy Bitcoin to hold it. Like they don't really use it for anything, and that this is the future. So people just want to, if you do crypto payments, nobody wants to use Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency for payments. They are being used as a collateral. And if you do payments, then you just better to use stable coins. And this is what I think will going to happen next. So we have a few branches of development. We have a NFT branch that has been very hot this year. And I think the NFT itself will be one of the bubbles again, but it probably will lead to a creation of something better. I call it creator coins, so that the creators like artists can launch their own tokens, and then people can invest in those tokens. Basically, it's some sort of profit sharing from the revenue that artist is making. Then we have the DeFi going forward. So we already see that the new blockchains are making DeFi faster and cheaper. So we're probably going to have a very, very efficient lending and marketplaces in the future. And I'm also seeing that the stable coins are coming with or without central banks. And sooner or later, this will lead to a consumer adoption. So instead of paying with your credit card, you are paying with the stable coin when you are doing your shopping, because the merchants or shops, they just make so much more money on that one, because Visa and MasterCard fees are very high for them. And I would say, like in the 2 years, we are starting to see some real economy on a blockchain, because at the moment it's mostly just crypto traders, but you can probably have something like Shopify shops being integrated blockchain. You are going to have sports teams. You are going to have normal companies that have their money ins and outs running on blockchain. And as the last third section of the presentation, we have the economic perspective, or basically why Bitcoin is so interesting for the banks, governments, and consumers, and how it is related to our current economic situation, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic being on. So from the point of the economy and banks, the interesting aspects of blockchain is that it doesn't crash. It's available everywhere, so you can send money to anybody in the world using Bitcoin and stable coins. They don't need to have a bank, and you don't need to have a bank. It's also it's not non-custodial. So if you have a wallet where you own your private keys, and the other party is also having a wallet where they hold their private keys, you can send the money, and there's no risk that's called counterparty risk, because every time you have money in a bank, there's a risk that the bank itself collapses. It happened in earlier 1990 in Finland. It has happened, I think Lehman Brothers in 2009 in the United States is a best example. And when the bank itself collapses, somebody's going to lose a lot of money. And it's not usually consumers, because if you are not rich, your money is insured. But if you are a business, if you are doing actual trades, if you are selling something, you are probably going to have more than 100K in a bank. And this means that it can't be insured, and you risk losing of this money. And the other one is that the monetary policy of Bitcoin can't be changed, or it would be very, very difficult. So in a old-fashioned banking system, the government can decide to add more money, but they actually can't decide add more Bitcoins, and that makes it interesting for investors, because they can assume that the Bitcoin value should go up instead of going down, even if there's bubbles and ups and downs on the way. And this has been the narrative lately. Basically, the Bitcoin run that started late last year comes mainly for the fact that now big corporations and institutional investors are buying Bitcoin because they think the world economy is going to get screwed, and holding anything else is going to be risky. And the other one is that maybe not for the European Union countries, or maybe not for the United States, but there are places in the world, like in Kenya, in Turkey, in Lebanon, in South America, holding the government currencies is so bad deal, because it keeps losing like 30% of value every day. So holding anything else but money is better option for those people. And Bitcoin kind of solves this, because it allows people to get something that's an asset, and that's a liquid, and it's likely to hold their value better than the local currency that's being devalued by the government all the time just to cover their debts. And here is this is from the letter from the ESMA. That's the highest body in the European Union that regulates the markets, and they are basically saying that we are in everything bubble. So no matter what you go and buy right now, it's likely to be a bad deal, because everything is overvalued, and it starts with the equities, but it also says cryptocurrencies and so on. So it says that there could be a sudden market correction, which means that everything will crash. And why is this happening? Is that the economy has been running on kind of I would say not wrong, but it has been being pumped and not to let correct it naturally for a long time. So there are a few factors. One is that the companies have so much debt at the moment that they are unlikely never ever going to pay it back. So we have companies that in reality they don't produce anything value. So if there would not be a cheap credit or cheap loans with 0% interest, these companies would collapse. So their economic output is zero, but they still exist because government is giving them free money, because all the politicians think that if they are going to collapse, it's going to look very bad in the next election. Other one is pensions. So basically, we can't meet the pension demands at the moment, and to keep the musical chairs playing, we just need to start sucking more money out from the young people on the expense of the older people. And also all of that money printing to make sure that the economy doesn't crash because of the zombies and pension demands and so on, leads to the fact that if you are young people, or if you don't start very wealthy, your chances to get wealthy are going down every day. So it basically means there's going to be more and more income equality in the future, because of all of this money printing going on, to make sure that the rich people are already rich, and to make sure that they stay that way. And here we have some cases from the near past. how it's going to happen. So Cyprus was a good example. It's an quite small and isolated nation. So what happens when the shit hits the fan finally? So everybody who had more than 100K in a bank lost half of it. And if you had less, well, then you were more or less fine. Again, it's not a big deal of consumers if you are not rich. But think if you are a business and one day somebody comes and says that we are going to take half of money your business has cash at the hand at the moment. And the other one is Lebanon, where government has for long mismanaged the economy because of corruption, because of unfair election, and because of basically keeping the wrong people in power. And what happened in 2019, 2012, basically it came to an end. They basically noticed that, okay, yeah, there's actually we don't have any money left anymore, and nobody is giving us more money as loans because they see we are broke, and it collapsed and it still hasn't recovered, and it's going to take like a long term. And of course, it leads to a fact that there are going to be riots, there are going to be a violence for the simple fact that people don't have money for food and gasoline. And from the macroeconomics perspective, how I think it will turn out is that the current decentralized finance is unstoppable. So you can limit it, but it's very hard to stop it at all. I see Bitcoin is going to stay around here for a long time, not because it's good, but because it was first and it has earned its value, that it hasn't crashed for last 10 years as a system. So if I buy Bitcoin now, I can be very sure it will work in 20 years. But if I buy some other cryptocurrency, if it works in 20 years, I don't know. And that's basically the value promise of the Bitcoin. It's not very smart, it's not very efficient, but it's going to stay. And then we are going to see some new innovations, like if the bank interest rates are going to very low, let's say you are going to get a minus 0.3 on your bank account in Osuuspankki, it starts to hurt people, and people are going to start looking for alternatives. So there has to be an end for the money printing at some point. And when that happens, we really don't know how it will turn out, but there are kind of ways to go around if your government currency is bad. And in very long term, I see that now when the COVID-19 is over, all the money that has been printed starts moving. All the prices are going to go up like crazy for the next 2 years. Everybody will be happy and partying. And then we are going to have a super huge hangover for the world economy. And there are kind of two ways how it could turn out. We need to separate the state and money, like we separated the state and the church in the past, so that the state can't print money in the future, but they actually need to finance their future economic activities with real loans and be a more fiscally responsible. Or it doesn't happen. And if it doesn't happen, it means that the value of everything is going to go down. And if you try to retain your wealth and the government doesn't like it, well, they can always come and ban everything. Like India bans Bitcoin, China bans Bitcoin. They basically tell the people that you are not allowed to have independent wealth, and whatever we do or whatever you can do, we will decide. It's not very likely in the Western governments, but I would say most of the world that's going to be the case. And then it can in two ways. Maybe we have an economic correction. Maybe we finally start to think more sustainable way how we run our economy and who is going to get rich and who not. Or we end up like in bad science fiction movies, and it's not going to be fun for anybody.